So good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your time today. This is Ara Akian, and we have some folks here scheduled with us, both Garrick Sobeski as well as Haresh Advani, both senior SEs out of the Citrix networking team. Today we're going to be covering some experiences that people have around NetScaler MAS and really the benefits that it can provide you for troubleshooting within your data center. We're going to be broken into several different sections. The first section will give you an opportunity to really get a fairly quick overview. Again, it's kind of difficult to cover all aspects of all products. So we're going to be doing a truncated session. You'll always have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. In addition to that, you also have an opportunity to follow back up with your account teams. So this is not going to be an exhaustive session. After that, we're going to be talking about some typical problems that we run into. And then from there, as I said, we'll open up to Q&A at the end. So with that, Garrick, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Ara, and thanks everybody for joining today. I'm Garrick Sobeski. I'm a sales engineer, as Ara mentioned, in the U.S. Mid-Atlantic region. Haresh, my co-worker, is on the line as well, and we're going to cover NetScaler MAS. And what I'm going to do for you here is give you a real quick overview of what MAS is and the different components of it. And then I'll take you through a walkthrough of the MAS interface. You understand all the different components of it from a high level, and discuss what each section does and the major components and moving parts of MAS. We're going to talk about the application dashboard and how NetScaler MAS comes up with an AppDex, or application performance score, that will show you, in theory, how your end users perceive your applications that are running through the NetScaler and how they're performing. So I have just a couple slides here for you, and then I promise we'll get into more of a demo on the system. So here are the different components that MAS contains. Management and monitoring, complete management of your NetScaler fleet. Inventory management, and that's across all flavors of NetScaler. We have VPX, which is virtual machine. We have MPX, which is a single instance hardened appliance. We have SDX, which is a multi-tenant hypervisor appliance. We also have CPX for containers. MAS can manage any form factor of NetScaler. It can do things like configuration management, event management, and event correlation, alarms. So all of your different instances can be centrally configured to send their alerts to MAS, and it can do correlations and things like that to help you do root troubleshooting, cause analysis quicker. SSL certificate management from a single pane of glass across all of your fleet, and that's a very, very useful part of MAS that I'm going to show you. Configuration jobs, scripting, audits, and advice. One of the examples we're going to go through for you today is just a sample configuration job that an everyday application delivery controller admin might see out in the field. And then we'll be able to control centrally all load balancing functions and everything else that the NetScaler contains. The analytics piece is a very, very critical part of MAS. What a better place to get analytics out of your network systems than your ADC, your application delivery controller. All your mission critical applications are flowing through it, whether they're web-based applications or Citrix, HDX. This is the best place to get analytics from. MAS is a tool that allows to collect those analytics and display them back to you so that you can make decisions on where problems might be lying, how end user performance looks, and things of that nature. We have a bunch of different products in the Insight family. Web Insight for HTTP and SSL-based applications. HDX Insight is for Citrix, ICA, XenApp, XenDesktop use cases. Gateway Insight for your SSL VPN unified gateway users. We provide a deep level of SSL insight as well, the different types of SSL traffic that's going through your NetScaler, the different types of signature algorithms, the certificate strengths, and things of that nature. Advanced analytics and application analytics. One of the things we're going to show you is that MAS has the ability to collect all this data from all of your ADCs, no matter where they're at, on-prem, in cloud, it could be in Azure, AWS. That's the magic of it, is they will report this data back to MAS, and we'll be able to detect things like server anomalies, meaning a rise or a spike in server response time and things of that nature. So MAS's machine learning capabilities are baked into advanced analytics to actually predict problems and proactively notify you of those. And then another major piece of MAS is orchestration. Many customers choose to go with an NSX for their SDN implementation inside the data center, or an OpenStack, or Cisco ACI. MAS is the traffic cop and the container and the brains behind those integrations. So that's another major piece that MAS offers. When we log into the demo here shortly, you're basically going to be brought to the application dashboard. This is a list of what MAS determines is your best application performance score that your end users perceive it to be. There's a lot of different things that go into that. Things like, how much latency is going through your actual transactions, whether that's LAN latency and WAN latency. MAS will show you those very important pieces. Server availability, the back end real servers that are bound to the virtual server on the NetScaler, and if those are available. As I mentioned before, server anomalies, be able to tell you when MAS thinks that there's something outside its normal operating range. And that makes something called an application health score. And there's a lot of things that go into that, such as ADC health as well, how much CPU and memory is on the NetScaler itself. Different security attacks, what we call the threat index, that can affect your application score as well. So if your application is under heavy attack, SQL injection or something to that effect, that's something that can drop your score as well. So that's the dashboard we're going to be looking at here. So I'm going to kind of jump right into the MAS environment and show you what it looks like. This is the Citrix Cloud version of MAS that you're looking at here. It's available for Citrix to manage for you as a service in Citrix Cloud, or this is available for you to run on-prem as well. This is the application dashboard view, and you can change this to look a number of different ways. I'm looking at it as tiles. If I want to look at it as a tree map, basically the box size is dictated by how much traffic is going through in terms of data volume that you see right here, but I'll keep it as tiles just to keep it nice and neat. So there's basically a color grade to each application and an AppDex score. So you can see that some of them here, SAP for example, is at 67% right now. Well, maybe that's suboptimal from what we're expecting. And one thing we could do as administrators or end users or application owners is click on SAP and take a look at the trends of this. Now, when we click on this, we get the App Info panel on the right. The App Info panel is basically showing you what is your application score trending over time and what is it currently. And if you'd like to get some details on what is constituting your application score or maybe what's pulling it down, you can click on this little icon here and get more details. Now, here's all the things that go into your application score. So response time. This is actually measuring HTTP transactions going through the NetScaler all the way from the user's browser through the internet into your environment that can be on-prem or on cloud to the NetScaler's front end. Then from the NetScaler back to your real servers. It's measuring response time. You can see we logged some alerts here about transaction times being outside the threshold of 500 milliseconds. So we can click on these and get alerts and find out what server or services are causing this to have poor response time. And that's pulling our score down here. That's one of the main factors. We also have some active services here, meaning that we don't have all of our services, our real servers that are bound to this active right now. Maybe some are down for maintenance or an outage or something like that. That could pull the score down as well. Here's ADC resources such as CPU and memory usage, NIC card saturation. Surge queue requests are an important one. Surge queue is on the NetScaler would be requests that are kind of queuing up because it can't send them to the real servers on the back end quick enough. So that'll sit there and hold in the surge queue, and that's indicative of a server delay problem, something like that. Advanced analytics gives you things like server delay anomaly. So if your application normally responds in say 20 milliseconds, but maybe there's an anomaly of some type where it goes up to 100 milliseconds or more, and that MAS will learn that over time, and it'll detect that as an anomaly and show you an event here that you can drill into and decide which server is causing this. So this will give you proactive information about why an application is normally running baseline, but maybe it has gone beyond that. Same with uneven load balancing. If you have one server that's getting a lot of transactions sent to it, maybe some that aren't, you can see that here's an anomaly as well. Server internal error 500 is something that users might call your help desk about and report. NetScaler can see these since this traffic's going through it, and we can report back to the admins and say, and we can detect these 500 internal server errors, and you can troubleshoot accordingly and get those corrected. And service flaps, where there's services that might be going up and down in a quick period of time, very small period of time. These all are server anomalies that any of these items can take your app score down. So in the case of our applications here, SAP's score is really dropped because of the response time that it's that has gone down, as well as a back-end service that is down. And we can automatically know how to fix some of those things by looking at the mass data here. Some of the other things that are important is your application security, and that could drag your score down as well. So we click on the app security dashboard here. There's a couple of different applications where application security is impacting. So we look at Concur and Workday here. So if I pull up, let's just say the Workday application, for example, and I want to see what kind of attacks are going on that's hurting my score there. I click on Workday, and my app info panel on the right, there's my app score that we were just looking at. If I scroll down some more, here's my threat index. If I click on my threat index for this application, this will give me lots of information about the different types of layer 7 attacks that the NetScaler is detecting: cross-site request forgery and cross-site scripting and SQL injections, or there's IP reputation built into the NetScaler provided by Webroot. We can log all of these anomalies and events here in the security dashboard, where your security team can drill down on these events and get information about where the attack source is coming from, which server is targeted, which URL is being targeted, any of our web application firewall components that are reporting violations of some type can be logged in here. Your threat index will be determined by the different attacks that are occurring currently. Safety index is basically a list of things that MAS will recommend to you as hardened settings that you should make on the NetScaler in your application to better position its security for attacks. So you can see in this one, for example, the security check is not complete. We have all of our signatures added in there, but it's also making some recommendations here under system security, under cryptography, right? To do configure close notify on TLS. That's a big one. A lot of these sync up with the SSL best practices from SSL labs and things like that. So in the application security dashboard, we're going to give you a lot of information about the overall security stance of that application and why it might be affecting the overall app score. So under the Networks tab, this is where fleet management occurs. You get a dashboard view of all of your instances and different data centers. Again, these could be on-prem or in cloud, no matter where your NetScaler or what type of NetScaler you have, we can import it in here. Here's all the different types of NetScalers that we can support. So you can get a summary view of all your NetScaler instances across your fleet. Some of the things that we can do here is event management. If there's a certain condition or alarm that comes in and you want to take a certain action on it, you can configure that here under the events section. SSL dashboard, I kind of referenced this earlier. This will take a look at centrally at all of your SSL certificates on all of your NetScalers and give you a quick view of which ones are expired or which ones are set to expire quickly here. And you can react to them and kick off the workflow to get those renewed and updated right from MAS, so that you don't have a situation where an SSL certificate expires on you and causes browser warnings and broken conditions and things like that. But you get a lot of other information in the SSL dashboard here about who's signing those certificates, if they're self-signed or signed by a particular CA. Maybe you have a standard that you stick to. You can click on those and see exactly who's signing those. What are the signature algorithms for those? You can see all of the certificates and if they're actually applied and used. So I could see here there's 29 total certificates here, and I could just quickly click on this green part or click used, and it'll show you which ones are used, and basically this yellow one here is unused. I can do a lot of housekeeping or cleanup on my appliance. It'll show you the different key strengths of all the certificates that are applied out there. I click on them and see which instance I have those hosted on. So if I need to standardize on 2K certs, for example, you can see here not recommended. If I click on that, that's going to show me a lot of 512 and 1024 certificates that I'm trying to get rid of. So we get a lot of information out of this, as well as the different SSL protocols that are being supported on each appliance. We can also script configuration jobs from here. We're going to demo this in one of our simulated help desk tickets here. Anything that you could do in the CLI or the GUI of NetScaler or via API, this can be done in MAS and automated and turned into a repeatable task. Here under network functions, this will let you look at all of your load balancing virtual servers and the real servers that service those vServers here from one central single pane of glass. So even if it's over a bunch of NetScaler instances, they'll all be in a single view here from NetScaler. So you don't have to go hunting down which instance maybe the Concur virtual server is on and things of that nature. All will show you here centrally inside of MAS. For the analytics piece, just kind of going to touch on this a little bit. Web Insight, again, is really an HTTP or an SSL-based transaction going through the NetScaler. So things like OWA and things like that, we will get valuable information about performance data and troubleshooting information. And we're going to show you this in our demo here shortly when we talk about some common use cases of users that are troubleshooting problems. HDX Insight is for Citrix applications. So we're going to dig into that for XenApps and desktop users. The other things that we can do with MAS, as I mentioned before, which we're really not going to cover here in the demo, would be integrations with OpenStack, ACI, NSX, and things of that nature. That's the other thing that we can do inside the MAS interface here, is set all that up. That's not configured here in the Citrix Cloud version. That's on the on-prem version of MAS that we offer. And that's pretty much it for the walkthrough of the interface. So next thing what I wanted to do was bring Haresh in, my colleague, to talk about some of the different use cases, or what could MAS do for you as an IT operation, or an ADC admin, or an application admin. What are some of the common things that we see out there, and the questions and problems that MAS can help you with? So Haresh, would you like to kind of jump in and talk about some of the common use cases we see with MAS and how they can help resolve issues?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Haresh Advani. I'm one of the sales engineers, networking sales engineers. Here you have in front of you some tickets that we commonly see our customers refer to. The one or two that we're going to show you today is number 2 and possibly number 6. Right now, if we go to number 2, just to read to you a little bit about what this ticket is about. This is a common ticket. This is about users that are using XenApp and XenDesktop. It's a very urgent ticket. It's come in as a resolve ASAP. And basically what the ticket is, that a couple of users are having very poor performance where they really can't work. And the request for our team using MAS is, can our tools help us identify the application, because the user didn't even tell us which app it is. And then secondly, because in general networking can go deep and a variety of different components in the infrastructure, what do we troubleshoot next? Who else do we involve, right? And the last little hint here is that we spoke to another user and he says it's working perfectly for him. So this is, I guess if we move into the MAS demo, we'll go to HDX Insight. That's the component within MAS that gives you the analytics for ICA traffic. If you immediately, what you are presented here is with latencies, right? If you notice on the chart there, you have round trip time, ICA round trip time. You see it in the chart as well at the bottom. And you have WAN latency, data latency, and a variety of other things, right? In this case, I want to call your attention to the first user in the bottom half of the screen here. And if you notice, his round trip time is 1 second, which is very high. But if you notice, his WAN latency is relatively low, while the data center latency is high. Now, what these two numbers are the latencies between the user and the NetScaler, which is WAN latency, and then the latency between the NetScaler and the back end. So from this point of view, you can see as an example how quickly we can at least identify that the problem is not coming from the user side, it's really coming from the data center side. Now, if you click into this user, you basically will see what he's actually using and where the latencies are, right? So if you scroll down, you'll notice there's some applications that'll be highlighted. I think if you scroll down further, right, there should be applications indicated in the chart. If you notice, he's using Outlook. And this gives you information really that nobody else can give you, because this Outlook has been identified as the app being used within XenApp as one of the streams within multi-stream ICA, right? This is one of the reasons it's called HDX now, for high definition user experience. And because it's a multi-stream within ICA, other products would probably just tell you the latency. They won't really let you dig this deep. And the bottom line here is, once we know the application, we can at least troubleshoot more narrowly to that particular server where the VDA may be, whether it's an actual CAS issue on the Microsoft or to do with the VDA. At least we have basically eliminated a lot of the other components within the infrastructure, so we don't waste time troubleshooting those. Right? In this case, it is an issue with one of the CAS servers, And this is an example of how you can identify where the problem is and where the problem is most likely, where the problem most likely isn't, so you don't waste time troubleshooting. Now, there's a variety of screens on the left. If you notice, we went to the first screen where you see users, but you can also slice this up by looking at application performance. This is a general way to recognize whether an app is behaving poorly for many people, or when the problem is affecting maybe a certain number of people and not really generally across the board, right? These are all important in helping you guide your troubleshooting effort in the right direction so you don't lose time. There's a section for desktops also, which is basically used for VDIs. If you have desktops being used by users, this will help you determine the actual servers on which the VDI is running, the VDAs basically that you're running, right? And in addition, there's some other components here. So this is a quick example of how NetScaler MAS can help you troubleshoot a complex environment, because typically there's the user, there's his network, there's his endpoint, there's the NetScaler, there's a lot of different components, and MAS helps you troubleshoot those. If you go back to the ticket queue, we'll try to address one more ticket, right? So this ticket is interesting. This is really a secondary ticket to a problem that was discovered where an LDAP server was not responding. The teams have come up with a solution to update 62 NetScalers tonight in the maintenance window at 2 a.m. And there's the syntax that the team has approved for change management to be configured on 62 NetScalers. So the question is, how can MAS help you push out a config snippet like this onto a X number of NetScalers at a particular time, and how and why, you know, what else do we do to help you with that? So let's move on to the MAS interface, and we'll go to the section for jobs. Now, Garrick showed you this a little earlier. This is the screen where you would go. So what you do is, once you have the syntax that you need, you would click Create Job, and basically give it a few things like a job name. You type in the syntax that you need. And here, maybe I'll take a minute while we're typing this to mention that even if you didn't have the syntax, MAS has a recording feature where you can trigger a NetScaler GUI to pop up right now, and you do things within the GUI, and yet MAS will intercept those commands and turn them into CLI commands and populate the screen for you. So it doesn't have to be a single line. You can do a host of changes within the GUI, and all of those commands will be captured here for you. And you can either issue them for a single task, or you can actually turn them into a repeatable script. Right. So one last thing I want to show you here, just respecting the time left here. We're basically going to paste in the commands here. It gives you an option to pick the NetScalers, right? MAS has a feature for instance groups in which you can populate a certain number of NetScalers. Here's where you would pick either a single NetScaler or an instance group. There's two tabs at the top, right? And you can have a predefined instance group via a text box management IPs. And then there's a couple of other screens here that you can actually schedule this, right, to run. So I think given the amount of time, we'll probably move ahead if we want to just, if you want to move on to the questions, or
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you for that, Haresh. Garrick, again, thank you as well. So I see 3 remaining questions. For the other folks, that I do apologize. I'm not sure if the questions are showing up in the panel. If they're not, we'll definitely capture them and send the responses back out. I have 3 outstanding questions. First one looks like in terms of licensing. So the question was, how do we license MAS, and how is it made available? Haresh, can you take that one?
Sure, that's pretty easy. MAS is licensed by the quantity of VIPs that you have under management. NetScaler management is included, and so you can have all your NetScalers under management for some of the things we talked about, like that upgrading tickets, upgrading commands. But MAS is licensed by pools of 100 licenses, and in fact, it's available
Muted.
With 30 licenses included.
Unmuted.
Free when you download it.
Excellent. I see one other question in the queue in terms of how can I get started with MAS? Garrick, can you take that?
Sure. MAS is available via download on the Citrix downloads page. And it's basically a self-contained virtual machine that you can deploy, or you could talk to us about running at Citrix Cloud as well. The virtual machine contains everything you need in it, the operating system, the database, and things like that. For those on the call that have been using Command Center in the past to do some of these system management chores, we recommend using MAS moving forward. And that Command Center is a little different because you had to bring your database and things like that. But MAS is a fully self-contained virtual machine that has everything you need to get going. And then we have a MAS getting started link available under the MAS documentation that kind of talks about the different steps in order to get MAS up and running.
So folks, again, thank you so much for the time here today. We are coming up on the top of our half hour. So I wish you a great day and hope you learned something new today. Thank you again.